The sun dipped below the horizon, casting an orange glow over the village of Nkembe. Shadows stretched long and thin across the dusty path, crawling toward the wooden huts. The villagers moved quickly, lighting fires and shutting their doors before the shadows swallowed the last light. The flickering flames, a fragile defense against the night. It had begun as whispers, hunters disappearing in the forest, livestock slaughtered, their bodies left mutilated. But when the attacks crept closer, claiming the lives of 2 villagers near their homes, the fear became suffocating. Silence reigned. In the council hut, Obasi, the village elder, leaned heavily on his staff. His furrowed brow betrayed the weight of his years and the burden of leadership. The flickering flames illuminated the deep lines etched into his weathered face. Around him, the other elders spoke in hushed tones. "We cannot wait any longer, Obasi," said Amara, her voice shaking. "You have seen the tracks. Whatever did this is no ordinary animal." Obasi raised a hand, silencing the murmurs. His voice, though weary, carried authority. "I have sent for the brothers." "Ikpe and Izu?" Amara whispered, her eyes widening. Obasi nodded. "If anyone can face this creature, it is them. They will come." A murmur of relief swept through the room. Ikpe and Izu, the lion-hunting brothers, were legends across the 7 kingdoms. It was said that no beast could escape their spears, but even legends cast shadows of doubt. By the next evening, the brothers arrived. Their arrival met with a mix of hope and trepidation. Ikpe, the elder brother, was broad-shouldered, his presence commanding as though he were carved from stone. His spear rested easily in his hand, its tip polished but scarred from countless battles. Beside him stood Izu, leaner and quicker, a bow slung across his back. His sharp eyes flickered over the villagers as though already assessing their fears. The brothers listened as Obasi recounted the attacks. When he finished, the brothers asked to be taken to the scene where the last attack occurred. When they got there, Ikpe knelt by the edge of the forest, examining the tracks under the moonlight. "This is no lion," he said. "The prints are too large and the claws cut deep. But look here." He pointed to the ground. "These marks, they are spaced like footsteps." Izu glanced at him. "You think it walks like a man?" Ikpe nodded grimly. "Not a man, not a lion. Something between." That night, the brothers prepared for their watch. The village fires burned brighter than usual, but the darkness beyond the trees seemed deeper and alive. Hours passed in silence, broken only by the crackling wood. Then came the scream. It tore through the night, raw and desperate. Izu was the first to move, his bow drawn as he sprinted toward the sound. Ikpe followed, spear in hand, following the direction of the scream. They reached Amara's hut and found her collapsed on the ground, sobbing. "Nia, my daughter, it took her," Amara cried. Ikpe stepped outside and saw the tracks leading toward the forest. "We go now," he said, his voice firm, "before it is too late." The forest loomed before them, alive with whispers and the rustling of unseen creatures. Ikpe gripped his spear tighter while Izu lit a torch. The brothers exchanged a glance and stepped into the shadows. The forest swallowed them whole. Its twisted roots and gnarled branches seemed to reach out, clawing at their legs and arms. The air was thick and the scent of deep earth and decay. Little did they know, the forest was more than just a home for beasts. It was alive and it was watching. The forest closed around them, its shadows twisting like fingers, reaching out to snatch at their clothes and weapons. Thick gnarled roots coiled across the ground, forcing them to move carefully to avoid tripping. Strange calls echoed through the dense canopy above, as if unseen eyes were watching their every move. Izu's grip tightened on his bow. It feels like the forest itself wants us gone. Ikpe glanced around, his spear raised. This place is alive. Keep your wits. We are not alone. Suddenly, the undergrowth rustled and the shadows darted between the trees. The brothers froze, their eyes scanning the darkness. A low growl erupted from the bushes, and before they could react, a pair of glowing eyes emerged. A massive beast with fangs bared and fur bristling lunged at them. Ikpe thrust his spear, grazing its shoulder, while Izu fired an arrow, the force of the strike driving the beast back into the darkness. It's testing us, Ikpe said, his voice steady. We keep moving, but stay ready. More will likely follow. The torchlight danced across thick vines and tangled roots, but the brothers pressed on, their footsteps silent. Izu whispered, "It feels like we are being watched." "We are," Ikpe replied. "Stay alert." The air grew heavier as they ventured deeper. An eerie hum rose from the darkness, and glowing eyes blinked from the undergrowth. Suddenly, a low growl echoed through the trees. Izu turned, bow raised, and let loose an arrow. It struck something, and a guttural roar that sounded like a cry followed. A massive hyena-looking beast lunged from the shadows, teeth bared. Ikpe met it with his spear, piercing its side, but another set of glowing eyes appeared. More creatures emerged, wild dogs and twisted beasts, unlike anything they had seen. Pushing Izu behind him, Ikpe said, "Do not show fear or let your eyes wander." The brothers fought side by side, slashing and stabbing as wave after wave of creatures lunged at them. Izu's arrows whistled through the air, finding their marks with deeply precision, while Ikpe's spear struck with brutal efficiency. Yet, the beasts kept coming. Izu ducked as a clawed paw swiped above his head, narrowly missing. He rolled to the side, losing another arrow that pierced the beast's neck. It staggered, but didn't fall. Ikpe stepped in, driving his spear through its chest. "Get up!" he barked, his voice steady despite the chaos. "They must never meet you on the ground." A shadow leapt at Ikpe from behind, and Izu spun, throwing a dagger that buried itself in the creature's flank. It shrieked and fell back into the darkness. "We can't keep this up forever," Izu panted. Ikpe nodded. "We need to drive them back. Follow my lead." He planted his spear into the earth and grabbed a torch, hurling it into the brush. Flames erupted, scattering the beasts and giving the brothers a moment to regroup. "Now!" Ikpe commanded, charging forward with his spear raised. Izu followed, unleashing a flurry of arrows. They fought their way through the horde, pushing the creatures deeper into the forest until the last one fell. Panting and covered in sweat, the brothers stopped amidst the carnage. The forest was silent at last, but the air still thrummed with unease. "This fight is far from over," Ikpe said, tightening his grip on his weapon. Blood stained the earth, and Izu wiped his brow. "How many more do you think are out there?" Ikpe knelt and examined the wounds on one of the creatures. "These are not natural beasts. They are creations of a dark power." Hours passed as they pressed deeper, their muzzles aching. At last, they reached a clearing where the ground was scorched, and ancient carvings covered the rocks nearby. At the center stood a twisted carving of a lion-headed figure. "This must be the heart of the forest," Izu said. Before Ikpe could respond, the ground trembled. A deep growl resonated, and from the shadows emerged the creature they had been hunting. Its body was covered in matted fur, and it walked upright like a man, but its eyes burned with primal fury. "This is no ordinary beast," Ikpe said, tightening his grip on his spear. "This is what has haunted the village." The creature roared and charged. The brothers split apart, circling it. Izu fired an arrow, but the beast swatted it aside. Ikpe lunged, his spear striking flesh, but the creature struck back, knocking him to the ground. "Ikpe!" Izu shouted, drawing his knife and leaping onto the beast's back. It howled in rage, thrashing as the brothers fought to subdue it. After what seemed like an eternity of endless battle with scars to show for it, Ikpe's spear found the creature's heart. It let out a deafening roar. It eventually fell to the ground, collapsing as its lifeblood soaked the earth. The brothers stepped closer to the fallen creature, its body still twitching as if it refused to surrender. Blood soaked the earth, and the air hummed with a strange energy. Izu prodded it with his spear, but it lay still, its glowing eyes fading into darkness. The carvings surrounding them began to pulse faintly, casting eerie shadows that danced across the clearing. Ikpe knelt beside one of the symbols etched into the stone and traced it with his fingers. "These markings, they are warnings," he murmured. "This beast was more than just flesh. Someone or something called to it. They opened the gateway to hell for it to cross over." Izu glanced nervously at the trees. "Then we need to destroy whatever binds this creature to our world before it rises again." As the brothers searched the clearing, a sudden gust of wind blew through, stirring the leaves and revealing a hidden entrance beneath the roots of a massive tree. The carving seemed to point toward it. Without hesitation, they descended into the darkness. Inside, the air grew heavy. The walls of the cavern were marked in symbols and crude drawings of battles between men and beasts. At the center stood an altar, upon which rested a broken amulet. "This must be it," Ikpe said, stepping closer. Before he could touch it, the ground rumbled, and spectral figures emerged from the walls. Spirits of ancient warriors bound to protect the altar blocked their path. Izu fired an arrow, but it passed through the nearest figure. They could not be harmed. Ikpe scanned the room and spotted torches mounted along the walls. He also near on the ground by the altar, bound unconscious. Fire is the only thing that scares them. They ignited the torches, waving them to push back the spirits. As the flames flared, the warriors recoiled, giving the brothers just enough time to reach the altar. Izu picked up the unconscious child, while Ikpe shattered the amulet with a single blow of his spear. The spirits let out a wail that shook the cavern. Cracks splintered through the walls, and the chamber began to collapse. "Run!" Izu shouted, grabbing his brother's arm. They sprinted toward the exit, leaping over debris and dodging falling rocks. As they burst back into the clearing, the carvings glowed one last time before fading completely. The earth sealed itself, and the forest let out a long sigh as if exhaling years of torment. A shimmering figure appeared, a protector spirit, its form glowing softly in the dawnlight. "You have freed this land from darkness," it said. "But darkness is never truly gone. It may return." The brothers bowed, their faces grinned but determined. As they returned to the village with Nia, the people erupted in cheers, their joy a balm against the horrors of the night. But Ikpe and Izu knew their journey was far from over. Legends, after all, never rests.